Hi, everyone. My name is Fernando Amico. I am the founder, organizer of this little circus. Besides the Nova Fest, also the other branch, the Capitol Film Market, which goes on all weekend from 10 to 5 Eastern Standard Time, and we have a panel every 1:24, 56 o'clock. We're just getting organized again for the first time again under this new virtual platform. So please be patient, and thank you for your patience as we get it organized. So with that, some quick housekeeping, because we do have some new people who've never been to a film market or are familiar with at least the general dynamics of it. So I'm going to do a very quick overview, introduce the gentlemen we have here today. Is it just the three? Okay, yes. And then we're just going to go right into it. So again, general overview of a film market, and please guys don't correct me if I'm wrong, because a lot of this is still not necessarily learning on the fly, but again, we are all learning. In general, extreme generalities, the way a film market works is you have, and I'll take AFM, the Big Daddy, as an example, your favorite, Mark. In general, we have all the players congregated into one concentrated space. The players being sales agents, filmmakers, producers with completed films and or ideas, and also buyers. In this case, we have sales agents, distributors, and our participants are producers, again, with either completed films or pitches or ideas. So the idea is, it's a, much like a flea market or open space or even an expo, where we have the space here called the Capitol Film Market building. When we've had this in an actual brick and mortar, essentially all the people congregate together, and our sales agents will have booths or kiosks or rooms, and be open for meetings to negotiate deals, and really all of the above when it comes to negotiating anything dealing with the commerce end of show business. So what happens is you either set up a meeting with them, and then you have a meeting just like you would with everybody else or in any other business, or you just sort of pass by, and if it happens that they're free, their door is open, or again, if they're at a kiosk or desk and they're just open and ready to entertain new relationships, you sit down and you start having a conversation. Excuse me. The sales agents on their end, they are looking to get content for their buyers. On the producer side or filmmaker side, if you're new, again, it can be a little bit overwhelming, because you want to come with really both barrels out in the sense that you've come prepared. You have a Bible, you have your key art, you have any paperwork to further legitimize your production, and that could be anything from letters of intent to full trailers to fully completed films to again, really anything under the sun. So the way it works is it can be really confusing, and at least you're only dropping $50 or whatever for this one. I know my first attempt many moons ago at the American film market was they charged an exorbitant amount of money, and I just sort of walked around not knowing exactly what to do. But essentially, again, making it into very black and white terms, there are, at least for the people involved in this particular forum right now at present, it's an open, to think of it virtually as a building space. You set up meetings with sales agents. If you don't have a meeting, you try to see if you can just start one impromptu and bring as much of yourself or your completed work to them as possible, or whatever project you have, as close, if not past the finish line, as much as possible. And then you meet, and there you go. What makes it the nuanced understanding, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think I am, but like the American film market, many, I'm going to say even the majority of the sales agents there are based in Los Angeles for the most part. for the most part. It's just that they're all concentrated in one space. So you're not driving to Wilshire or the Valley or Malibu or whatever, wherever their offices are, one by one. They're all concentrated in one space. And there are other nuances involved as well, just the timing of the year. And there's I'll go out on not too big a limb in saying there is also the facade of just being at the film market itself. So you come off as more of a professional, or you can say you closed at market, or there's that side of it too. But we're not going to get into that. So anyway, with that, like I said, there's a learning curve for everyone. Whether it's just coming to a film market for the very first time or understanding the technology that we have. So from my screen, I'm just going to go top right and then left to right. We have, I'm going to introduce you by name, and please just give us a quick sum up of who you are and the company you represent, and any other comments you'd like to contribute. And then after we go through all the introductions, we're going to go right into it. So Marc Clebanoff, can you
yeah, Marc Clebanoff. My company is Odyssey Motion Pictures, based in Los Angeles. Been a production company since 2004 and a sales agent since 2011.
Fantastic. Phil, how about you, sir?
I'm Wonderphil. I'm based in San Francisco. Started this company in LA 16 years ago, and then moved back home because there isn't as great a need to be in LA as there was 16 years ago. And I like filming in San Francisco as well. So yeah, I've been doing the sales side, been making movies, trying to shoot a film a year while doing the sales. So trying to keep creative and keep the sales and keep the business, and yeah, that's basically what I do.
Fantastic. Tom.
Yes. Hi, Tom Malloy. I have a production company, Trick Candle Productions. We're doing our 17th film next month to start it. And funny enough, it's after 17 films, my first film directing. I'm directing this film that's coming up next month. So kind of a new venture for me. But 5 years ago, started Glasshouse Distribution, and actually more like 6 now. And I'm in New York. The rest of the team, one person as well is in New York, and then the rest of the team is in LA. And same, just like these guys, we see each other. We did see each other at the markets. Now we don't anymore, but and hopefully in the future we will.
Awesome. Yeah, so we're coast
yeah,
to
I miss all you
right
guys
now.
I know. I miss markets in general. The virtual is like the virtual is all the market without the fun. That's the
yeah. No, I mean, I used to. Well, some markets, I think we all have our favorite markets that we like to go to. Like, I love going to Berlin every year. I hate going to Cannes, but like, I would kill to go to Cannes right now.
Oh yeah, God, man, I miss it. Yeah.
Last bit of housekeeping. If anybody has a question, hopefully you're looking at the same interface I am. Either put in the chat, or there is a Q&A tab. Click on there. That lets us know you definitely have a question for the panel, which will save questions for everybody towards the end. Otherwise, again, just learning this virtual space, you all are at the same table, so you can have, with the chat, you can have conversations privately between with each other, or you can have a conversation with the entire table. So if you want a question for the panel, try to put it in the Q&A tab, or put it in the general tab too. I'll keep one eye on that to make sure everybody can participate. And just arbitrarily, abstractly, I'll throw this out there. When we get bigger and badder, these are the Filmocracy, the platform providers we've been working with, we have a relationship with. These are the same people who do Cannes as well, and I'm sorry, AFM and Cannes. So these are the big boys.
Yeah, your website's kick ass.
Yeah. In that, what I was trying to say is, if when we get bigger, we're trying. Thank you. in this building itself, there are 8 floors. This is just some last bit of general housekeeping. Then I promise we'll get into the hardcore stuff. In this building, there are 8 floors. So literally, you can have a meeting on any floor with anybody at any different table. The idea as we grow is that these guys are going to be, these sales agent people here are going to be paying me extraordinarily large amounts of sum just to reserve and rent space to have a table on, or even an entire floor where they can have their meetings.
Oh, you're really taking a
so
AFR
much
book,
like
huh?
a brick and mortar meeting.
I'm taking it.
Well, except we'll be providing quality content and actually benefiting, getting your money's
You
worth.
got to.
But the point being, if like a regular building,
Quote me a price, Fernando, and I want the whole building, Capitol building, man.
Yeah, whoever figures out how to do a virtual open bar is going to be genius.
$12, Phil, $12. You have like a one-track mind, Mark. So, in trying to finish up here, there are 8 floors. We can have up to 100 people in each floor. So literally, you can have I believe 800 to 900 people per building. But we'll work up to that. So again, that's just some general knowledge. In one last push, also that we have our award ceremony tonight at 7 o'clock. That's in a different building. That's in the awards hall. If anybody involved here, this is more for the audience. If you're nominated for a film tonight and want to watch the pre-recorded award ceremony, that's on tonight at 7 o'clock. And I'll wrap the itinerary, and it'll still be available later for VOD up through the end of the festival and market, which is tomorrow. Tomorrow is it's the second and final day of the market. It's going to be a repeat of today. Again, just an open space, set up meetings, either scheduled or impromptu, and there'll be a panel from 1 to 3 o'clock. So that's it. And now we are going to get into it with our 3 friends here. Again, sales agents, filmmakers, all of the above. I know, Tom, you started out as acting, if I recall, originally, and then you just exploded from there. So we have the 3 gentlemen here. Unfortunately, our folks over at Leah Mark are at a shoot today, but they'll be in our panel tomorrow. Most likely they'll be Maria repping Leah Mark. So thank you for your patience with that, and we'll get right into it. I'm going to start out with because I wrote this down and get all the points out. General question. So like again, we have 2 panels, one today and one tomorrow. So like the rule of thumb with writing, we're going to start at the end today, and then tomorrow's panel will be at the beginning, meaning so much of this of everything on the back end, the commerce side, is interwoven. So however, let's try to keep everything on the distribution side today, and we'll see if we can make the general topic film finance tomorrow. But we'll break the rules if that's where our conversation goes. I like to keep these as organic as possible, but not too random. So it has been almost 6 months since we've congregated. In that time, you have put it this way: have you seen any seismic shifts in the distribution models, or as a review, what has been the most significant change due to the pandemic? Anybody may start.
I think.
Go ahead.
Well, I just think we're getting more and more used to it, and the markets are getting more and more used to it, and that the markets are these virtual markets are getting a little better at their platforms are getting a little more involved, and like MIP TV just ended, and some things might not have worked so well, but their platform is getting slicker and slicker, and it's just like 100% virtual. Cannes says they're going on, right? They say they're going to be live, but I doubt it. I mean, I would bet a lot of money that they're not going to be live, and so we're just, whether we go to anything this year, just adjusting to everything being virtual and
Mhm.
and that's creatively too. I mean, it's not just business. It's like I shot a movie last year right here without leaving the office, and did it all by FaceTime and Google Meet, and did the whole feature. So just trying to make everything work, business and creative.
I'll say, yeah, we've adapted quite nice to the virtual thing. We've taken, kind of got it down to a science with this new meeting thing with film art. I mean, Berlin, and then we had film art 2 weeks afterwards. And between that, just me and Rob, because we had our other person was out of commission, we had over 100 Zooms between the both of us in that short time period.
Wow.
And these guys know Can was going to have this like virtual thing at the end of May, and it just pushed, which I was like, yes, because it's just too quick. I mean, like we just had the other one, and I'm also doing this movie. But just like Phil said, there is a lot more virtual stuff. People for this movie flying in the day before, the couple days before, where they would have had to been here for a week or two to scout. A lot of virtual stuff. But the one thing I'll say for the filmmakers is that I think that some buyers are buying more movies, maybe ones that they wouldn't before, just because we're kind of got that hole from last year where there's no movies had been made for so long that they're catching up. So while they're not paying higher prices, unfortunately, they are selecting more movies, I have found, as well said.
Yeah, I'd say seismic shift. Unlike like Tom, for example, I'm taking more of a lackadaisical approach to the markets. I'm participating, but not as aggressively as I normally do. Because I've found that my clients are much more engaged throughout the year between the markets because of the lack of physical market opportunity. In terms of seismic shifts in distribution, the digital market is still very much in its infancy, and in a lot of places doesn't even really exist yet. And so I think the pandemic has really expedited the digital growth all over the world. And for us, I know there was a lot of what's going to prevail and show itself to be the most lucrative form of VOD. And I think the pandemic has really established now that AVOD, ad-based VOD, is now really emerged as, at least in the independent space, as the most lucrative place. I think that AVOD is kind of landing now as that's going to be the real future of digital distribution. And then in terms of everything becoming more day and date now, in terms of it's being released theatrically and streaming simultaneously, it looks like the studios and the big streamers are going to start acquiring theaters, which is going to change everything. Everything's being condensed. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot of really obvious shifts in how things are being done now. And even assuming the dust settles on this whole COVID thing and we go back to normal, it's going to be, I hate to sound cliche, but it's going to be a new normal. It's not going to go back to how it was. It's going to go back. It's going to just continue on as it's evolved in the last year and a half.
I've been pushing with a lot of our filmmakers, and you know who you are in the audience right now. It's really, in general, even before, long before, even from day one, before the pandemic, it's so much of what filmmakers have to do is hustle. It's really about the hustle and just using every possible resource, your network, making those cold calls, or not necessarily being disingenuous, but just find a way to get your foot in the door and be in front of the right people, develop the relationships with the. Do you have any advice for the filmmakers, along the lines of now everything's virtual and the Zoom calls, Zoom meetings that may give them a little bit of an edge or something new that they can do now that they couldn't do 14 months ago, that can just give them an extra edge into the business or move their productions along?
People are more open to having virtual meetings, whereas before, I think just getting a meeting with somebody or a phone call, I mean, people are at home. They, in theory, have a little bit more of a laid back schedule. I think people are going to be more inclined to, take meetings and obviously look for new opportunities. You know, I'm looking more closely at things people are submitting to me, because buyers are, especially as everything evolves digitally, it's becoming more of a volume-driven business. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, well, like not going to the markets, you just have more time, and how many thousands of people, you know, we're going to these markets, and then suddenly, you know, even when we're back home, we may actually be home and not at an office. So it does kind of, you know, making the pandemic work for me. It's like, okay, it's like I can concentrate on a lot of different things here because I'm not distracted by travel. And I think that, you know, speaks for what Mark's talking about with all these opportunities. Yeah, people are like, all right, well, I do have a window here. Like, you know, I'm home. I'm, you know, not even going to the
and
office.
Not to imply like the HBO execs are going to jump on a Zoom with you all of a sudden, but like, you know, I think just people are paying closer attention to their inboxes.
Yeah. No, and I agree too. I mean, like even market meetings, there was people that, you know how it is in Cannes. They're taking one at the Grand Hotel, and then they're coming. They don't want to come through the security of the Palais and blah blah blah, and so they may not take it. Versus here, you know, they'll jump on a Zoom. But I will say, I feel bad for, you know, other than this, Fernando, where you can see the action, it looks like a real thing. I feel bad for some of the people that can't actually go and just walk in. You know, the missing part of the markets is this foot traffic. That's what we said. It's like, well, we don't have any foot traffic anymore because there's no foot traffic, you know, and I think that's an issue. And I'll poll these guys, but I'll tell you that my opinion is probably AFM is not going to fully happen. Or if it does, you know, like why would we invest? Oh, I think I'm freezing up here, but I was going to say, why would we invest the money to get a full suite at the AFM if a third of the people are going to come? I think the first real one is going to be Berlin next year, but I don't know what their opinions are. I mean, I think everybody was holding on and hoping that AFM was going to be physical this year. But I mean, just for a filmmaker, walking into an office, I always thought was so much more powerful than, you know, I don't know, trying to ping them on whatever AFM's platform is or something.
Well, AFM didn't need the pandemic to dissuade people from showing up. But,
to put the nail in the closet. Yeah, that's a good point.
No, I think you're right. I think this year's a wash in terms of live events, because even if they allow it, you know, people are going to be less inclined to get on a plane. You know, quarantining issues are going to be issues. You know, vaccines are an issue. So, yeah, I think it's going to take at least the rest of the year to sort all that out. Although from a production standpoint, everything I'm working on and putting together and have gearing up to shoot, we're doing outside the U.S. For the most part.
Where?
Eastern Europe. My partner's based in Bulgaria, so we've been trying to put most of our stuff together in Eastern Europe. We just get a lot more bang for the buck. That, you know, not to say that anybody's disregarding COVID or anything like that, but it's a lot easier to navigate there. And just the cost, you know, everybody's production costs. I just did a budget for a $1.7 million movie I'm trying to actually put together in Virginia. And there's $72,000 in the budget for COVID. So, you know, that's a big problem, especially when you're already working on a budget, you know, adding on like 10 to 15% onto your budget just to deal with COVID. It's very restrictive.
It really sucks. And not to get into production, Fernando, I know you don't want to go there, but yeah, same deal. And I'm super, I'm not against it from a safety perspective, obviously, but I'm against it because that's just like money that'll never make it to the screen, you know, and you know, SAG's got all these rules like testing 3 times a week, like for fully vaccinated people, testing 3 times a week.
At $125 a pop.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, they're fully vaccinated. It's like, I don't know. It just makes, it's one of these things where now it's shifting into the gray area. I'm fully vaccinated. The leads in my film are fully vaccinated. It's like, you know, we're going to get to a point where the SAG rules are there, but like, you know, do they make any sense anymore? You know, once we hit the summer, late summer, the fall.
Yeah. The hope is eventually we get to the point where it's like testing is like $40 a pop and you got to do it twice a week, you know, that's fine. But it's like $125 a pop 3 times a week. I mean, you do that doesn't even include your COVID compliance officer, your equipment. I mean, again, that's a big digression. So we'll go back to distribution.
Yeah,
It's a big thing from a producing standpoint, and it's a big inhibitor from movies moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you have the advantage of nobody's working, so you do have your pick of actors. So and you can probably offer a little less, but then you have the expense of COVID. So, as an indie filmmaker, I would think that there are, since there aren't many productions going on right now, indie or otherwise, some of these indie filmmakers should apply to grants or something. I don't know for sure, but I would think that there's a lot of money out there, that the grants are year round and they just keep getting their budgets and nobody's applying. I would think it would be easier than ever for some of these indie filmmakers to
This project I'm putting together in Virginia is being approved for 3 different grants that collectively, combined with the state incentive, cover 50% of the gross budget of the film.
Nice. Mm-hmm.
Wow, real quick, can you share what any details about the grants?
So
just
one
some
of
titles, maybe.
one of them is specifically based on our director being a Virginia resident. One is based on us meeting a qualified spend, and then one is based on us shooting in a depressed region of the state. And the governor's office is actually facilitating.
Okay, I mean, was it as
us.
easy as? Was it as easy as calling the Virginia Film Office and making a general inquiry?
Mm-hmm.
No. Okay. Well, did maybe share a little bit? We're
still dealing with the process.
Was there some?
We're trying to put
Did you have to go
this project into production by fall, and as of now, it's on track. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really unique, interesting grant opportunities in Virginia. But again, our director and writer is a Virginia resident. The project's incredible. And it just, honestly, that was one of the most appealing things about it for me as a producer. I mean, I obviously creatively, the project speaks for itself, but as a producer, you have to have a pathway to a green light. It's not enough to just be like, oh, I love this project, I'm going to make it. Like, it's got to be a clear path to put a finance structure in place, know that you're going to be able to cover the spread in distribution, and knowing that I'm able to produce a $1.7 million movie and I only need about 55% of that in equity. That's pretty sexy.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, because you mentioned your partner, at least your co-producer there, is from the Virginia area. What if, say, you're in South Dakota or Utah or Georgia even? Is it just a matter of a little bit of elbow grease and contacting the different film offices or even regional offices
to see what
they're offering?
That you're chasing, it is just a matter of reaching out to the film commission, establishing a rapport with the film commission, and then familiarizing yourself with what the requirements are and going through the process. Tapping an incentive is not as easy as you think, because assuming you get pre-approved for an incentive, you have a very specific window of time to be able to execute, because that money is earmarked by the state. And if you don't execute by a certain point in time, after the point at which they pre-approve you, you lose that incentive. So there's a big juggling act as a producer to be able to know that you're going to be able to get to your green light in that window of time to exploit that incentive.
Stuff, yeah.
There's a lot of moving parts to it, but any competent producer can navigate it. Some are easier to deal with than others. Like Oklahoma, for example, it's like one of the easiest incentives in the world to deal with, and it's a cash state. And then there's others that are a little more convoluted. In the case of this Virginia thing, it's somewhat bespoke because these grants are very unique to the state.
Fernando, I just want to say I saw this question, and because I got to jump in here, and I know this is not a production panel, but Linda was saying, but I just want to say that she said, how do distributors look at COVID costs? A $1.7 million film is now over 2.3 because of COVID. Could we do a no-name, non-union and still sell it if it's good? No, you can't do it. You can't do a no. In fact, if you gave me $30,000 to shoot a film, I'd still find one or two names to put in there.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So never do that. Cast. Don't do that. And you know, don't.
I'll tell you guys right now, like, to break it down, if you have a really well-made film that's got a great concept and it's the right genre and whatever, and doesn't have any real big cast driving it, you'll probably do some licensing in Asia. Europe, on the other hand, entirely driven by cast. You can have the greatest movie in the world. If you don't have the right cast driving it, like, it's gonna be, you know, brick wall after brick wall. I have a movie out right now that you can see on Netflix. It's one of the highest production value action movies floating around the independent market right now. We killed in Asia. Europe, we did deals all over Europe, but the money was garbage. It was not even close to where you know, we had hoped to land, because we didn't have a big enough cast driving it. So we had this really high production level, production value action film. We had cast, but not big cast. And it really prevented us from doing the kind of business we had hoped. This is $1 million movie, and we've recouped about half the budget for the producer. They're never going to fully recoup.
But I would just say, yeah. But if you're on the other hand, I mean, shoot what you can. I mean, go shoot. I mean, it's going to be a harder sell for sure. Like no cast is definitely a hard sell. But if it's between not shooting and shooting,
always
shooting.
But always don't do it for 1.7, or don't do it for 2.3. Do it for $500,000. Do it for 300,000. You know what I mean?
But if your movie is, you know, in a stack of movies that's being considered by a distributor, and your movie is equally well produced with another movie, but that movie has, you know, a well-known face or name in it, that movie's always going to take priority.
Mm-hmm.
So Tom is absolutely right. Like, and we're not talking about getting, like, you know, A-list cast. We're talking about just recognizable faces. That makes a big difference in the independent world. And it sucks, because I've come across, I represent a couple of movies that are really, really fucking great movies, and they just don't have cast, and they struggle.
It's tough. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, can just for an example, so our audience has some frame of reference. What would you consider a viable name? You know, obviously we're not going to throw Johnny Depp or Will Smith out there, but what's more the middle ground?
Yeah,
it was mentioned
plus
in the
names,
last area that people more
actors that show up every once in a blue moon in something big, you know, or might be a semi-regular on a show, but their bread and butter is still the indie stuff.
When you go get your Starbucks coffee and you ask the cashier, have you heard of this actor? And if they say
that's
yes,
it. I always say, do you have to explain the name? If I say John Smith is starring, and they go, who the hell's John Smith? I go, well, season 2 of Game of Thrones, he was this guy. You're done. You know what I mean? Yeah. But if you say I got Jack Black, like, that's it. Well, then okay, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So
there's
I think that
rules
cuts
of
the heart
when
of the
it comes
question,
to especially the B actors.
Go ahead, Mark.
Number one, exactly what Tom said. When you say the name, do you have to list their credits to explain who they are? That's number one. Number two, any actor who has played an iconic role at some point in their career is still going to have an inherent value. Even if they're not big now, if they played an iconic role, even back in the 80s or 90s, that is going to give an inherent value to an actor.
Or 7.
Okay, you mentioned again. I'll let this stream continue a little bit. I'm going to rip off a bit of a question from Cora here. Does the name actor play a significant factor also in regional foreign sales, Asia, Europe, so on and so forth? Obviously, domestically, U.S., Canada. How much? Because you already mentioned it, you kind of touched on it already, Mark. But if you, again, this is kind of arbitrary, but how much of the name
significantly
affects foreign sales,
especially in Europe?
Okay, that's good to know.
But when you have a small name that is known in the U.S. for whatever, I mean, that name may not be known in certain territories. So you think they're known, and they're saying who, and so the smaller the name, the
and
the
if you are
tougher, of
going to
course.
cast a
Yeah.
known actor, always better to cast, if possible, if your budget or whatever allows, always best to build around that actor as opposed to stunt casting. You know, it's always more ideal to have a known face as your lead as opposed to like an unknown as your lead and then like
Okay.
pepper in somebody here and there. Because if somebody wants to buy a whatever, I don't know, name an actor.
Yeah.
Like
I
if
said
somebody
Jack
wants to
Black.
buy a movie based on that actor, they want to see they don't want to see that actor show up like once or twice sporadically throughout the movie. They want to see that actor show up.
Yeah,
At
yeah.
least you get
It's
it on the
value.
poster, Mark. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
if all you get is one day, and you shoot as much as possible
still
in one
value.
day. At least
And-
you have his.
100%. But and then and then the other side of the exception is sometimes there's people that come like a Scott Adkins, for example, that may not be huge in the U.S. but internationally is a monster star, you know, and that guy works. Or somebody came to me and showed me a movie and it had this Cam Gigande, who's a pretty good name. I mean, like solid, at least somewhat in the Twilight world. And then they said, well, they got this other guy, KJ Apa. And I go, who the hell is that? And I look him up and he's Archie on the show Riverdale with 20 million followers on Instagram. And I was like, oh, all right, he's Archie on the show about Archie. Like, so there's exceptions. Maybe I didn't hear of him. And of course, none of us can hear about everybody. But I felt that was value. And so did Voltage Pictures. So it's like, you know, the key is it's not, there's gray areas on each side.
Yeah,
But
I'll give you a good example. One of the movies that I produced recently that came out recently, it's called Stakeout. It's a crime drama with the two lead actors are Jeremy Sumpter and Tom Berenger. Now, Jeremy Sumpter is known. He's not a huge star, but he was Peter Pan and like, you know, he's been on some big shows and whatever. The kid has a massive social media following. Distributors don't care about him. They care about Tom Berenger because he's a household name. He's an Academy Award nominated actor. Berenger isn't on social media, so he contributes virtually none at all to the promotion of the movie. I licensed the movie because of Berenger, but I actually get eyeballs on the movie because of Jeremy Sumpter, because of his Instagram following and whatever. So it's kind of an interesting like dynamic, and it's a good example of like the lead actor doesn't have much distribution clout, but he's driving traffic to the movie. The name in the movie is bringing me licensing deals, but is not actually, you know, doesn't mean a whole lot in terms of like driving traffic.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So complicated. I'm gonna steal one last bit of the question that prompted this was, and maybe that'll lead us back to the distribution world. A little more focused and clear. Has genre been affected? Because genre goes up and down. You know, pandemic, no pandemic. Where is genre's place in the calculus in terms of the distribution world right now? Is anything just popping really hot? Is something just
pandemic
dead?
hasn't changed anything,
or have any of the changes changed?
In my opinion, there's always going to be movies that are going to be higher in demand, like action movies, because they transcend language and every territory in the planet buys action movies. Whereas like dramas and comedies are more culturally specific and they're going to be tougher to sell. So I don't think anything's changed in terms of genre. My buyers all still want action films, horror films, like very specific types of films.
Okay. Totally. And I've always said that, you know, but there's one little teeny thing that I've noticed that we noticed on that Berlin and Film Art calls, that every buyer, it's like, what do you guys like? They say action. That's always like almost across the board's number one. But I heard war a lot. And I was like, okay, that was weird for them to say war. I didn't know if that had to do with COVID and the depressing times. But so like that was the first market where they were like war. And it might have just so happened that the buyers that we lined up happened to say that. But I'm like, okay, they want a war movie. And I'm talking about historical war movies, like period.
Oh yeah,
World
War II movies and stuff.
I was like, okay, all right. Yeah, that was shocking. But bottom line is a no-name drama. Like, gosh, you know, every indie filmmaker wants to make a no-name drama. Like they want to do that because that's their Oscar gold in their
hardest thing in the world to sell.
Hardest. It's so hard to sell those movies. And if you're gonna do it, the only thing I would say is make it the most vanilla, you know, no cursing, you know, sweet movie, and maybe
make it a family movie or a faith. If you're gonna do a drama, work within one of these niche genres like family or faith that's gonna give it more of a distribution appeal.
Yep, 100%.
Okay, Phil, would
You
you
can-
concur with most of everything they're
mean,
saying so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I was just watching a movie yesterday. It's like, okay, alcoholic, you know, I know he's going to end up doing good and, you know, coming around and being a better father, being a better dad, and being a better person, being a better
got
brother,
that movie
best friend.
too.
You know, I get it. It's gonna,
I love
we're gonna see it for an hour of seeing him being a drunk and being kind of a jerk, and then 40 minutes, and it's like, I didn't mind watching it. I mean, I like it, but it's like, wow, this is gonna be a tough sell, man. This is gonna be a tough sell. And you know, the kind of the running joke, and in a way, I mean, but it's the truth is like, yeah, go, you know, Christmas movies, the dog movies. I shot a monkey movie, like, you know, like, you know, it sells. It's like instant interest, and it's. I mean, we're, you know, I think the three of us are talking about business, and we're talking about the, you know, what the buyers are looking for. It doesn't necessarily, you know, I think the filmmakers have to realize that when we're talking, I think we're talking from the buyer's perspective and not like our own personal.
Yes, I don't watch
opinion
dog
times.
movies. No, I don't think any of us do.
So
Yeah, but like, if somebody wants to go shoot
Yeah.
a drama and like that's where their heart is, like we're not saying don't do it. We're saying you have to know what you have to do as well to like give that film the best shot. If you're gonna you know, if you're gonna do something outside of, you know, the really high in demand stuff, again, do it, but educate yourself about how distribution works and what buyers want so that you can integrate things into your drama that are going to kind of elevate it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I will say, on the other hand,
Well,
you know, I've seen filmmakers where, you know, you make your first film. I mean, you were talking about no budget stuff. So it's like, you're not talking about like big names. You're not talking about big money, but you go make your first film and you do it with your heart, and then you say, okay, that didn't really sell. I'm going to do something commercial. And then the commercial one is like, wow, it's not as good as the first one, because you're just trying. It's such a hard balance, because you have to be aware of all the business stuff and try to know, like, okay, I'm going to make this drama because I really want to, and I'll see what happens. And if that's the frame of mind, great. But yeah, it's just
Yeah,
you know,
Phil and I
it's
know a
just a tough
filmmaker
call.
who he's a really good filmmaker, but he doesn't listen to any advice about how to cast it, how to do it. He just wants to go and do how he wants to do. And he makes great movies, but they're tough. They're always uphill battles to sell.
Yeah.
Phil knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
and I don't want to discourage anybody.
There's always the
going out
lottery
and
ticket that proves it wrong. You know what I mean? The person that makes the little movie that could, and suddenly it's just like, you know, but that you can't bet a career on lottery tickets. But
That's
at
true.
the same time,
Yeah.
no. But at the same time, you know, if I got a movie that it's a drama, and then I'm listening to this and I go, oh, let me put a dog in there and set it at Christmas, just because you think that's going to give you the money, you got to kind of go from, you know, the passion of wanting to do that first. Exactly.
I will tell a quick
genre.
story though
Yeah.
about one of those
Yeah.
anomaly lottery tickets though. I picked up a movie a few years ago that was a drama, very dark subject matter, no known cast, done totally low budget, but it was like a truly profound film. And I spent a year trying to get this film released, and nobody would touch it. And when I finally got it released, it went viral. It became one of the top trending movies for like 2 months on Amazon and Tubi and everywhere else. And then we just produced and released a sequel to it. And now we've been approached about potentially doing a small series around it. So it does happen. It's just not the norm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've worked with one director, and we've done a stack of films, but it's all like shoot in Italy. We shoot, you know, gladiators type stuff, and get the castles and the storming the fortress and all that stuff. And it, you know, if a name, maybe there's a name, maybe there's not, but we've been able to just keep shooting and making. Yeah, but that's unless if you're in Italy shooting, you know, castles and You know,
That's why we
its
go to
own
Eastern Europe.
sale point.
That's good.
Yeah.
The general advice I give out there to filmmakers is that, because they have their passion projects or there's just something they have to make, and I say, go for it. You can ignore the advice and the comments as far as the commercial end, and just again, go for it. God bless you. Make the film that you want to make, but don't come once you're at final cut and you've got it in the can and you want to put it out to the world. Don't be disappointed on the commercial side if you didn't follow some of the basics. And again, there are always exceptions to the rule, but if you didn't follow the basics as far as getting a name or increasing the production value here or there, and just a little tricks to the trade to make it a more sellable
Fernando,
film. Think in
of
terms
it
of
like
what
this,
the buyers want.
This is the only
sales
business in the
agents like
world
yourselves,
where
what do you
people
want?
can literally start a business with somebody else's money and have no business plan. Because most filmmakers don't actually have real world knowledge about the business end of the business. It's all driven by like, emotion and passion and whatever, which are great, but that's only half the equation.
But we all know it.
Restaurant, I don't do any market value, and I'm like, oh, but
Absolutely.
I make a great cheeseburger, and if I make the best cheeseburger, people will find it. Like, yeah, and
sometimes, sometimes it works. Yeah, no, all I'll say is bring it back to the distribution, and is you all know this, Mark and Phil. How many times you heard filmmakers like, well, my plan is to just make the movie, and then we're going to go to festivals and then sell it. And it's like that's not a thing. Like, I mean, they're just because Kevin Smith did it years ago, and there's definitely stories of Sundance, Amazon buying a movie from Sundance. It's like that's not the strategy. It's like
norm. That's not a viable bit. That's basically saying I'm going to be the lightning in a bottle.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That's not a viable pitch.
Yeah, I'm the one in the million. And in the meantime of hitting festivals for a year,
so
your
many
film
times.
got a year
like
older.
It's like when the film comes to us, and it's like now it's 2019. I'm like, what the hell is 2019? Like you all know it. There's some buyers that don't even look at movies if they're more than 2 years old or even a year old. Yeah, yeah.
But then you have I've had Sony say, hey man, if you got in this, if it actually gets accepted into this major, then I'm interested, and if it doesn't, I'm not interested. So it's there's no one answer to all this stuff.
But I mean, I think that looking before and taking your movie and saying, I want to make a genre that's going to sell, and I'm going to go to markets, and I'm potentially going to attach a sales agent or distributor before it's made, or distribution before it's made. That's just everything is a complicated puzzle, and everything is a lot of movie god luck. But all you can do is really stack the deck in your favor. And that's the way I look at every movie. It's like, how much can I stack over here before I go in, instead of just going, I got a great idea. You know what I mean? Like, and I got money to do it. No, stack the deck, keep adding value. And at least, look, that's no guarantee even there, but at least you have you're starting to shift the odds in your favor that you're going to do well.
Absolutely agree. And let me shift it slightly. We talked about genre, names, so on and so forth. Again, we have a lot of new filmmakers here that are going to be listening to this later on. How, if anything, has there been any kind of shift in terms of shorts and or documentaries in that world? Are companies more open to that in the AVOD world on either front? Again, shorts or documentaries.
If anybody sold a short, please let me know. I've had filmmakers who had a feature and a short, and I sell the feature, and I say, hey, to the distributor, why don't you just have this short with it or something? If they're making a DVD, they don't even take the short if I offer it for free. And I've tried
wow,
Laura's short. I mean, it's just been so hard. I think 10 years ago I sold a short and made maybe $1,000 or something, and that's about it. And then so I have a few shorts on my site that I have it there, and I try,
serve
but
two
I haven't
purposes.
done
They're either
anything.
proof of concept for a filmmaker or proof of concept for a bigger project.
Calling card.
But they're not real pieces of business. Yeah, you can throw them on platforms and generate pennies, but they're not. They serve a different purpose. They're not. They're not like something that you're gonna, monetize to a point where you're gonna make a career out of it.
And it should be noted that Amazon, and this is for the smaller movies, not for the, you know, if you're doing a bigger deal, Amazon stopped taking documentaries and short films from, you know, people that are doing what he's saying, putting them up on platforms. That just happened like what, a month ago, I think. And they made the announcement that they're not taking the docs or shorts. And I think that was Amazon's fault, because they took everything, you know, there's like a just nonstop stockpile of things that they took on. So if you are going to do Amazon Video Direct, or even we do put movies on Amazon for our smaller, you know, like more volume business, no doubt.
Actually, even independent
Much
films,
pickier.
I mean, they're getting Amazon's.
Yeah, Amazon's rates have
a lot
gone
of
so
indie
low at this
films as
point.
well.
It's like, even when you have something that's doing really legitimate business, the actual dollar figure is really deflating.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying, when I talk about AVOD, that's where it's all
Okay, well,
headed
that's
in the digital market in terms of real revenue streams, is all the ad-based stuff rather than the subscription-based stuff.
In the last panel, we had Eric mentioned it before, so I'm asking if it's still the same case. It's not landing that, the big swing and landing it on HBO or Netflix. It's just having the 10, 20
hang
or
on a
more
second.
different
Hang on a second.
streaming services.
Let me just
concert
address
with
something.
each other.
When
Is
you
that
say
still
the
case?
big swing, just
Go
because
for it.
something ends up on Netflix or HBO doesn't mean it's a financial success. Netflix actually pays like shit. Like,
Yep.
yeah,
agree.
it's the
I
gold
agree.
standard in terms of like getting eyeballs, but 10 out of 10 films that go on Netflix lose money by being on Netflix.
Mhm.
In terms of the independent stuff. And I'm happy to give very detailed examples if you want. But, just to clarify, yes, those are big swings and those are big wins, but financially, they're not what I think most people think they are.
Yeah, agreed.
It's actually more ideal to, like you said, have
those deals,
your movie or your content on an array of different platforms that are collectively bringing in multiple revenue streams.
Would you say then that Netflix is if you can get a non-exclusive deal,
Netflix
would you
takes
say
movies
that is
exclusively for
more
at
of a
least
build?
2 years?
I'm sorry?
Usually 2.5.
Oh, really? Okay, gotcha. Because I was thinking maybe it could be used as a billboard saying, "Hey, look, my film's on Netflix." Well, I don't have a Netflix
I'll tell you
account
right
or
now,
what
I
have
have a
you.
movie
Well,
on
I'm on these
Netflix.
other
They took it for
distribution
all
platforms. You can
English-speaking
check this out there.
territories, so that's US, Canada, UK, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa. 2.5 years exclusive. That license was worth $100,000, and they pay out over the course of the 2.5 years.
Yeah, or 2.5. Yeah, something. Yeah.
So quarterly, we're getting payouts on it. But my point is there's still another probably $50,000 to $100,000 in domestic revenues on this movie that we can't even start to exploit until mid 2022, because the movie came out at the beginning of 2020, and they have a 2.5 year exclusive. So we're actually losing money by having this movie on Netflix.
Right. So yeah, getting to the point. So essentially, wherever you have your eyeballs, if you're looking just for the notoriety and the facade of saying, "Well, my movie's on Netflix," I made the deal, but in the background, actual spreadsheets, you're losing money. You would have made more money if you didn't go to Netflix, opposed to X, Y, and Z streaming platform that mainstream doesn't necessarily know.
It's not that black and white, but
that would
on
have
the
been the wiser
surface,
choice.
it's not a great deal. But we took the deal because obviously the producers wanted their movie on Netflix, and in theory, it gives us a little more steam, a little more. It gives it a bit of a cachet to do other foreign licensing, and then hopefully once the term expires, it'll do the business we need it to in all the other digital platforms, or we go to cable or whatever. But again, I just want, like, everybody talks about pitching Netflix and putting their movie on Netflix, and Netflix is not the shiny penny everyone thinks it is.
Or and a lot of them aren't. It's like I did a $50,000 Showtime deal.
Yeah.
It's like
that's a good Showtime deal. I've done
$15,000
Showtime deals.
Yeah. So yeah. No, I mean, it's tough, man. But people from the outside would look at it and be like, oh wow, So it's like you wonder what their goals are. Sometimes, for the filmmaker, they're okay losing money, but their movie's on Netflix or Showtime or HBO or something like that. Sometimes, and then sometimes, but that's.
Sure.
But it's also gotten harder and harder to get on Netflix. And as we've been talking, how many people have said, can you get my film on Netflix or, around the world? It's like, it's hard, man. It's really hard. And just look at what's on Netflix. It's like, oh, my film is, is as good as anything I see on Netflix. It's like, yeah, but look on Netflix. There are Netflix films. I mean, those are Netflix produced films. They have a new release, from 1989. Saving Sarah Marshall. It's like that's their new.
I'll tell you right now.
So
I think Tubi TV is going to be the next Netflix in terms of like right now they're taking everything the way Netflix used to, but they're going to slowly start getting more selective. Obviously, now that Fox bought them, you're seeing all their big movies in the carousels, as opposed to the indie stuff. But as they start expanding across the rest of the globe, I think they're going to be like the next really big platform for independent films.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Would you say what's the state of we'll call them the bigs, whatever, of Netflix right now? Is their concentration more on generating, because obviously Netflix has had many evolutions. Are they concentrated now more so because of the pandemic on maybe opening the door a little wider for acquiring content, or are they still very much focused on creating?
That's another misconception.
Right now, would you say?
I would, and I mean, I don't know the exact percent, but I would speculate that 90% of what's on Netflix is acquired, particularly, especially in the TV, not produced by them. Would you guys agree with that? No, I'm saying like the majority of
not
content,
even putting their name
especially
on
the TV content that is on Netflix, they are not producing. They might put their logo on it, but most of those limited series and stuff, they're not producing those, they're acquiring them.
Well, yeah, I mean, but what I'll say, they're not grabbing these series from, an individual. They're grabbing, a company that has 25, 30, 40, 50, 100 films and putting them all on Netflix. So they're not Netflix originals. There's 100 films up by one company that, from different countries. And so, yeah, they could throw up 100 films from.
Yeah, most of these streamers, they don't do one-off acquisitions. When I said earlier, it's becoming more volume driven. Like I could go directly to Netflix. I could go directly to Tubi, but I don't, because I work through people who have master licensing agreements with these companies that are able to put more volume in, and as a result are able to get more things through than I would be able to. Does that make sense? You follow me?
Yeah.
Interesting. I do. I didn't. It makes perfect sense. But again, but new to me to hear that. And obviously, it's going to be new to a lot of people in the audience.
Directly
so
from a producer. They want to work with a sales agent or a distribution company that can give them 10 titles a month. So as a result, that distributor is going to be able to get more things in.
Okay. And I mean, I'm going to even take a giant, huge step backwards, just so we're clear, because, we're throwing out terms and this is what you guys live and breathe. Just so we're clear on AVOD, that stands for advertising video on demand, meaning it's kind of a throwback where you can watch anything you want for free, like YouTube, but you get to endure commercials like you would watch television way back when.
Tubi is AVOD.
Yeah.
Well, Pluto's another one.
Sumo.
Yeah.
Would you say, okay, so here's another trend, because I definitely wanted to put that out there. Part of me knew kind of already had the intel on it, but I want to make sure I put it out on the platform, so it was on the table. So now there's about shorts, and maybe we can talk a little more about documentaries. But how about TV series and web series? How hot or not are they right now? Because I know at one point,
I don't mean to be dismissive. It literally is a whole.
Is that a whole different panel?
We can touch on it, but that's a whole different rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm neck deep in it, but it's a whole other ball of confusion.
Really? Because I know obviously the last NovaFest,
I have a whole plate of TV content. I have two series that have been produced at least through pilot, and then I have two others that have been developed based on streamer and network feedback. But that's, the thing about movies is there's a clear path with a movie in terms of like, we know how to sell a movie. We know how to monetize a movie, regardless of what it is. We can be very calculated about how we take it and present it to at the market and to distributors. TV is very different. TV is really relationship driven. More often than not, it's about who's show running it rather than what the actual show is. Being able to, you hear everybody talk about, oh, I'm, developing a show for Netflix or whatever. I just did my first ever Netflix TV series pitch about 2 weeks ago. And we have a packaging agent at a pretty big agency that set it up for us. It's not just like anybody can get that pitch, So having gone through that, we pitched Sony, Paramount, and Netflix all within a 2-week span. And like senior executives at those places, it's a whole other level of like trying to sell, in terms of pressure, in terms of answering questions, in terms of having a plan. But it's not clear cut like with a movie. The movie, buyer wants a specific type of movie. Okay, here's what I have. Here's the cast, whatever. A show is a much different web of convoluted ambiguity.
And it's less about shoot first, sell later. You know what I mean? Like that's not really a TV thing. That's you're setting yourself up for failure there many times. Films you could shoot first, sell later, but TV it's much tougher to do that. It's usually sizzle, maybe pitch deck, show Bible, showrunner. Then you get financing.
And that's one of the frustrating things about TV is you got like HBO Max and Netflix and Peacock and all these different streamers saying, bring us 6 to 8 episodes and we're interested. Well, how do you go raise money for something that you don't have any, like if you go raise money and produce 6 to 8 episodes of something and then bring it to these streamers and nobody licenses it, what's your fallback? Repurpose it as a movie, maybe. But for the movie, there's always places you can place a movie to monetize. And that's the big challenge with TV is it's a bit like catch-22 of do you produce first? Do you try to pitch? But, getting those pitches in itself is an insane obstacle that very few people are able to do.
Very tough. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just tough, man. I mean, just, you have, if you get an episode, you get the pilot, it's like, and then you say, okay, well, the producer, if this sells, the producer can go make more, but it's the catch-22 because they're like, we need to sell more.
And TV's also like
the one, we don't buy the one.
The show that I, showed the pilot on your guys' festival last time. Like we have HBO Max and Peacock both at the table that are interested in this show. Every time we've gotten down the road with HBO Max, the executive we're dealing with is either dismissed or leaves, and then we start from scratch with somebody new. It's happened 4 times. Peacock, kind of similar thing, but like,
ouch.
They are operating in volume. They're really going for, they're acquiring a lot of stuff as cheap as possible. So it's like, even if we come to an agreement with them, I'm still probably going to have to go do like a UK agreement and a Canada agreement to supplement my budget to even get to a point where I can shoot it.
Yeah.
So yeah, TV is just, it's a whole different conversation.
Really.
Okay. I think that's the great value of speaking with all you gentlemen today. That's the hook where we can read the general tea leaves, or at least I can, and go, okay, well, maybe they're switching more towards series because now instead of an indie film, it's a one-off, you're one done, then you got to start all over again. They're looking for a different vehicle where now it's episodic and there's the door is wide open. If it is a hit, it's easily open to season 2, 3, 12, whatever, where again, so much strategy involved.
Format, regardless of what kind of content you're producing, one of the things that's going to put you at an advantage is to just be flexible in your format. Like if you're going out, like the strip series that you saw, that was originally designed to be short form. That was shot as 6, 8 to 10 minute episodes that I then cut together as a 56-minute pilot. But like Peacock came and they said, we're interested in it for half hour. We're like, okay, we can adapt to that. We can do that. So being flexible in your format, even with movies, I think makes a big difference.
100%.
Yeah.
or
Okay.
even in documentaries. I mean, I just had a meeting and they're like, well, we don't need it to be 74 or 80. We need it to be 52 minutes. I'm like, I'll get it to you. I'll get it to you with 52 minutes. If they watch the long one and say it's, they're interested, not to cut it 52 just to submit it. And then they reject it. And like, well, what a waste of time. But if they like the longer version and they will buy it, if I get it to 52, it's like, no, I'll get it to 52.
No, you read my mind, Phil. I was gonna do a hard segue, but you did it perfectly as far as bringing it back to getting a little more information on documentaries on because even when I was teaching film way back when, I got in a little bit of a dispute with one of my students where I said you still have to look at it much like a regular narrative where you need to get a name in it, and they're like, oh, what do you mean it's a documentary? It has nothing. It's like, well, depending on the subject, if it's controversial, who is there an actor or a congressperson who is heavily involved in the subject matter, bring them on for an interview, shoot at a place that is significant and people just want to see it in the backdrop. Just really hitting all the different edges again to make it a more sellable project. Where do you see documentaries right now in the space? And leave that as a very general question, but where do you see documentaries in the space right now affected at all by the pandemic?
No, I don't see a difference, honestly. I mean,
Nice.
I'm
okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's a difference.
Places that want.
I think I think they're more hungry for content in general. So that it's last year I kind of thought last year I called it like deer in the headlights, and I thought I was like, come on, buyers, like you gotta be more active. Everybody's sitting at home watching movies, and you have to be more active. And I didn't do, it was like, wow, I thought it was a really slow year. It's like, come on. And then this year, it's like, okay, I think that's from last year. It's picking up. It's more and more happening. They've
Thank God.
crossed the road.
I think with
No longer staring
documentaries,
at the
it comes down to
headlights.
two things. It's like subject matter and production value. Like those are the two things that are going to drive interest on a doc. I mean, there's certain places and buyers that are just not going to buy documentaries, and then there's others that are gonna gravitate toward it. So
okay, I mean, I'll be specific. We have one filmmaker in the audience now. She just completed a feature-length doc, over 60 minutes. Or still hovering around that area. It can be flexible, but it basically follows the frontman for the band.
Music is
Fishbone,
good.
Angela Moore. So can it be? Exactly. Can it be case by case where she just goes, right after that market, specifically the band's fans overall
she's not going to
music
target
fans,
the fans. She's going to target the distributors that are going to have a track record and a knowledge base to be able to release something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. But music jocks in general are very smart. It's like we just watched one on Guar that I know they were talking to other people, but I was like, I just loved it. It was, Guar's a band that's so crazy out there that not everybody knows, but it was so like, oh man, I know what it is. And it was compelling as hell. But I think music documentaries, like I've actually had buyers say that. Like, well, we'll say no documentaries unless they're like music based, like meaning that's like a thing. It's the scope of a documentary. It's like, people, I'm going to make a documentary about my father, and it's like, okay, that's good for you to do, maybe for cathartic reasons or whatever. But unless your father was, the Paul McCartney, you know what I mean? Like it's a little bit tougher to sell at that point.
Okay. Again, so it takes us back home where we started as far as having a name, in air quotes. So
I mean, docs that are evergreen, that are environmental, that are, of course it's great to be beautifully shot and all that, but so there is that. If you're shooting underwater, footage, it's like you don't have to have the fish don't have to have a name. But
remember that one that was doing all that.
Yeah.
Okay. We're under the half-hour mark for this go around, so I'm going to start going through the questions. Unfortunately, I'm still learning too how it works. I'll go bottom up here. So we're taking questions from the crowd. let's see. I haven't even vetted this question. I'm just going to read it. So forgive me, it's too outrageous. If you, I'll paraphrase. If you know there is a cult following for your film, what about going at this alone and just listening to it on Amazon, listing it on Amazon?
Well, this is a broader question that can be applied to anyone talking about self-distributing. I'm not going to say it's a bad idea, but okay. I think it's a bad idea.
I'm going to say it's a bad idea. I'll say that. I think it's ridiculous. I mean, so many people, they don't understand that the metrics of it. Like, you know, so say you got 1,000 fans watching on Amazon. Great. 1,000 people are going to watch it. You'll make $7. You know what I mean? Like ultimately, or unless the TVOD, you know, they're going to watch on TVOD or something. It's like the numbers have to be ridiculously huge. But self-distribution, I don't think, you know, there was a teeny little window maybe 5 years back where it made sense, but I don't know if it's I always tell people, don't do it. Don't do it. Like, you know.
No. Yeah, not even then, honestly. I mean, if you're ready to give up your day job, if you're ready to become a distributor, then you better, you know, stop making films and leave your day job and become a distributor, then go for it. You know, but that's what it's going to take. And you're talking about inventing the wheel. And, you know, you can give it to some of these platforms that, you know, that will put it on all these different places, but all they're doing is posting it. They're not putting any eyeballs on it. They're just getting paid to post it. So how is anybody going to know about it or see it? And, you know, I'm the sales company. I'm not the distributor. I'm not the one putting it on Amazon. I get it to companies that do that for a living. and so they're not just, hopefully not just throwing it up on Amazon, but they have a following. They have ways of putting eyeballs on it, and more than just
distributors earn their percentage because they know how to package something and they know how to place something in a way that the average Joe can't.
Yeah. And their reasoning behind it is going to be either like got a fan base cult following, or it's going to be like, the distributor's going to screw you. That's like, I hear that all the time, you know, and it's like, first of all, I disagree. I mean, I'm not going to say that there aren't unscrupulous distributors out there that for years, and there still are, you know, but then qualify them, you know, and which I've always said that, like, go to their IMDb without asking for leads, you know, go to their IMDb, talk to some of the other producers from other movies and say, how did you do with these? Were they, you know, and they'll usually be happy to tell you if they love them or hate them, you know? So, but I think that should never be the case, the reason why you decide to do it yourself. Because there's places like we have a direct with Tubi, like they don't take, you know, for us to get that direct with Tubi, we had a lot of, you know, hustling and a lot of relationship building to get that before we have that direct relationship, you know what I mean, for years. And then had to have, you know, 40, 50 films in the catalog at least before we got that deal. And, you know, so they're not going to just take some guy. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen people rent a freaking, you know, not a booth. Yeah, booth. I mean, I was going to say suite at AFM, but I've seen them rent a booth at Cannes for one movie because they just selling their own movie or something like that. And it's like, man, that's a pretty big investment to do and a risk to do that. You know, it's like, well, at least they're thinking a little bit more than just uploading it to Film Hub or something like that, you know, but still. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you guys are being pretty direct. I was hoping for a colorful anecdote, like I raise cows, so I'm going to start a restaurant or something like that. You know, there's a jump.
Fernando, one of the best movies I ever made as a filmmaker. Okay. The very novice producers of the movie, it was their first movie. They wrote it. They raised the money for it, most of which was their own. And when we started going to festivals and winning little awards and then getting some offers from distributors, they thought they had this giant hit on their hand and they decided to self-distribute it. And my partner and I, it almost got to a lawsuit because we had made the movie for so little money based on the fact that we were going to participate in the back end. We begged and pleaded with them not to do it, and they did it. And that movie never saw the light of day because they thought they knew better than the pros, and they did it themselves. And they put it on Amazon, whatever. That movie never saw the light of day, and it was heartbreaking because it was one of the best things I ever did.
and or 3 years later they'll come back 3-4 years later, now 3-4 years old, and say, all right, let's see if we can sell it now. It's like, no, now it's
like a 2-year window when your movie is new, that it's got an opportunity to do like 90% of its business.
100%. Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. Over 90%. I was saying 100% to agree with you, but yeah, 90% exactly is right. But yeah, no, I think all three of us from the last panel, I remember, we pitched the same, what's his name? Mickey Rourke, supporting actor, boxing movie, Muslim boxer movie. It's like the guy the producer, the money guy behind it just felt he knew better than everybody else.
Right.
And now sat on it for 3 years. And I don't think have.
Yeah.
And he just
still waiting for the deal that's never going to present itself. And now he has a movie that's 3 years old that most buyers won't even touch.
Yeah, it's a library title now. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going from the bottom up here. This comes from Cora. This is all awesome information on what not to do. Can you bullet point a list of what points to check off so that we make our films
I say the biggest thing
sellable?
is like, well, you can't go to markets now, but even just building relationships with people like us that you can talk to and get feedback along the way so that you're avoiding the pitfalls. I think that's probably the biggest thing you can do that most people don't, because we're going to be able to guide you in the right direction. So just educating yourself about the actual realities of how the business end works is going to put you in the most advantageous position.
Yeah. And I hope that we're not sounding so negative. I thought we're actually just saying the positives and the negatives and saying, just the different options. I'm a little surprised that, I hope we're not like just saying this is horrible, this is horrible, this is horrible, you can't do this, you can't do this. Yeah. I think all three of us have been kind of saying what you can do and, not hopefully what you should do. But,
I think inherently it's just a hard business. So, the challenge is to get up there first.
Pick a smart genre, get some cast in there, meet a sales agent before and attach sales or distribution to it before you go, and then try to make the movie for exponential production value. If it's 30,000, make it look like 300. If it's 300, make it look like 3 million. If it's 3 million, make it look like 30 million. You know what I mean? Like that's, and I mean that from cast top to bottom, and it's like, and then you're at least at stacking the deck. That's that's what I guess I was trying to hammer home before, is stack the deck, add as much value as you can. And to Mark's point, a value, and Phil's too, is a value is getting companies like us involved from the start so that we could say, don't cast this person, these are the names that actually make sense. So.
Let me segue that into, I'm skipping around the questions a little bit. Cora also asked, if you have names who are huge in other countries or big in certain genres, does that help? Like, does it, a particular name adheres to comedy or drama better than the other? Or does it help if they're out of, that's how you draw some actors. They want to break out of their.
Totally. I have a funny story about that. It was like, what's her name? The female action star, foreign, first movie is Dazed and Confused. Come on, help me out, guys. What was her name?
Mia Jovovich.
Mia Jovovich, right? And so, that was like, we were talking about Mia Jovovich for like a dramatic movie, and she was affordable and gettable. But then we were like, gee, I wonder what Mia would be for an action movie. And it was like, then it shot to $4 million. This was some time ago, but it's like, she knew where her bread was buttered. You know what I mean? Like, she knew where her value was. So the key is that works sometimes. You could pick somebody from another genre and put him in, or her in your movie outside. And I also do subscribe to that rule that in that country, if you can get some Asian star that's big in China or something like that, that could make sense. I did that. I had a film called The Alphabet Killer, and the distributor at the time, who's still a friend, but anyways, I'll just say it's a guy. It was New Films International, and he's Turkish, and he wanted this Turkish star in a supporting role. Nobody knew who she was on the set. She was great, but then I found out she was like the Julia Roberts of Turkey, and like we did a theatrical in Turkey because of that. It's just because of her in there as a supporting role. She's got 2 scenes, and it's like. That was smart. So I guarantee he made $100,000 in Turkey or something like that, where Turkey's a nothing territory. No offense to Turkey,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've represented a lot of Turkish films actually, and so I've had, you know, it's like they've already, and I'm taking them on. They've already sold to Turkey, and nobody else has heard of these actors. So, I guess I don't know.
Well,
if
it was for
disagree, but
us
it's
because
like
he was selling it to
it wasn't
Turkey
any
afterwards.
help
They had no-
outside of Turkey.
Yeah.
It was,
Yeah, like the film that I mentioned that I have on Netflix right now. It's called The Brave. I mean, we have a
Right.
couple of American stars, but the movie takes place in Eastern Europe and it has these big Russian actors in it. We did a really decent deal with the big action network in Russia based off these Russian actors being in it. But we had enough American talent in it to sell it everywhere else in the world. And obviously, it being an action movie helped sell it all over the world. But yeah, the fact that we had these Russian actors, we got this really, really good Russian TV deal. And we're probably about to do a deal with Aeroflot because of that as well. With the
but
Correct.
because
No,
of the Russian
no,
actors,
in
you're not going to.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
Russian
Yeah,
actors aren't
avoid
going to
the
get you a
value
deal in
add on
Asia.
top of it's the icing on the cake, not the cake.
Exactly.
Some of these I'm just going to read cold. I haven't vetted them. I got like an eye on 4 or 5 different things going on. Will there now more? Let me try to grammatically fix it here. Are there more opportunities for distribution with less quality indie films made over the last year or so? Is theatrical a remotely more realistic goal now due to content
when you
needed?
say, is it a more realistic goal? Any movie can go in theaters if somebody's willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
I think there's it's a bit of a myth that people think if they make a good enough film, it'll just magically end up in movie theaters. Whether it's a distributor or the producer, somebody's paying for a movie to go into theaters.
Yeah.
But theatrical releases, even on a limited basis, are more often than not a loss leader. There's a reason. There are upsides to doing it, but it's not necessarily the most lucrative place to release a movie, especially a small movie.
Yeah. We got 2 films this summer that are actually going to be 3 for the year so far. One was smaller in like February, but 2 films coming out this summer theatrically where I do feel that maybe that wouldn't have happened in years past. And it was a company that came in and it's no risk to us because they do all the P&A and they take a bigger percentage and all that. So, but they're not, there's no way the film can end up negative from that.
But it's no risk to you in terms of money out of pocket, but it's still a lot of money has to be recouped before the producers see any money back, right?
Yeah. I mean, it might be exactly. It might be. We may not make any money from it ultimately, but it's still theatrical, which still means something with a film, and it could. You never know. It's So we'll see.
Yeah, and again, not to dissuade anybody from chasing a theatrical, but again, it's one of those things that I think less experienced people sometimes think that if your movie is great, it'll just end up in theaters, and that's just not the reality of it. It's somebody's paying for it.
Yeah, it's not the pot.
And it's exorbitantly expensive to put your movie into theaters because there's a whole marketing component to it.
Yeah, and especially if it's the companies that do, where you are going to have to pay back. Like I'm in with the Relativity people, and it's like they were just telling me that if they could choose to shoot a movie, put a movie in 1,000 theaters versus 250. It's like 250 might be a better play where there's much less P&A and it's much you won't have a monster hole to get out of. If the movie doesn't deserve 1,000, of course the filmmaker wants 1,000 theaters, but then they may never get out of that P&A hole. And to make
A-hole.
A-hole, yeah.
Yeah, I know. We're a soft mark.
But it's also what does look at a distributor, like look at who's going to put the money into a theatrical, and they have their choice of all these films. I mean, there's no shortage of choices, and are they going to pick a film that has no known cast and no budget and some small festivals, or are they going to pick some huge festivals, possibly some huge cast, and think, I don't know, we're talking about tens of thousands, we're talking about hundreds of thousands, we're talking about millions. I mean, you make a film for $20,000 and you think you're going to put in $20 million in promotion.
No, and what'll happen is that people will take those lottery tickets, like Clerks, like Paranormal Activity, like Blair Witch, and make that the rule and go, wow, it did it for this. And it's like, I could just be like, yeah, well, the guy down the street from me won 300 million in the lottery. That's what I'm going to do to make money for the rest of my life. Like, you can't bet on lottery tickets. Lottery tickets can't be your business plan. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah.
That's a great line. Lottery tickets can't be your business plan, but you are spot on. Almost every single independent proposal that comes across my desk references the anomalies as the norm.
Yeah. Yes. That's 100% true. That's the anomalies what they point to. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I lost the Mega Millions last night, by the way. So
hey, I mean,
this one is the win.
A little longer to get into production.
Oh man! Next time. Next time.
I was almost
sure.
your friend, Mark. Almost then. No, it just seems a lot like a lot of what's new is old and what's old is new in terms of this is stuff when I was still teaching film 10 years ago or what have you. That's just something I had to put out there because again, it's still the same things where, paranormal, Kevin Smith is like, okay, there are 5,000-6,000 films made a year. You're talking about 3 films, do the math over, 10, 15 years. You want to choose that path opposed to path over here. Talk to Mark, talk to Phil, talk to Tom, talk to Lee Mark Studios, who this is their job. This is their business. They're swimming in the waters. They're in the trenches at the moment.
Yeah. I'd say if your example,
I mean, just going back to like educating yourself,
you might want
one thing I'll tell filmmakers all the time is your job as a producer, only 50% of your job as a producer is making a good film. The other 50% knowing what to do with it once it's done.
Yep.
And it took me, I'll admit that it took me a long time to do that. I'm to understand that. Like the first 10 years of making movies, all I cared about was making a great movie.
Yeah, me too. I didn't know any better.
Yeah, seriously. It was it was
only when I started going to markets and learning distribution myself did I realize how much I didn't know.
Yep, 100%. Totally.
And I'm not everybody to go become a sales agent because it's hardly the path of least resistance. But you can come to sales agents like us, and we'll share with you, the knowledge that we have to help you avoid a lot of the pitfalls that we all experienced.
Yeah. Again, it's begin not about me, but it's been over the years now. It's been a bit of a junket where it's always the same cliche-ic, I'll make up that word, commentary where it's called show business for a reason, and everybody loves the show. That's the sexy part. That's the creativity. We're casting locations. Oh my gosh, I'm actually shooting this right now. It was in my brain. Now it's in front of me. I'm looking at the dailies or whatever version of it is now. This is great. It's in the can.
Yeah, and go for it.
50%.
I have 2 cameras. I have 2 4K cameras behind me. I can go. I'll go shoot an interview. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but if I'm like, I'll go shoot. I shoot interviews all the time. I mean, I haven't done anything with them, but hey, I'll shoot them. I haven't shot a short film ever, but I certainly have shot features when I should know better, but hey, I'm gonna go shoot it. I'm gonna just go shoot my no budget, no name feature. And
I mean, think of it this way. But you gotta know it. We all know what we want to do. You just got to figure out what you have to do and then find the middle ground. Because there is a huge disconnect between what you want to do and what you have to do. So the people who will find a career in this are the people who will bridge the gap.
Yeah. And there's no harm in going shooting something. I mean, hopefully it's not your one and only. I mean, it's better to go shoot a few things while you're
just don't get yourself, don't max out all your credit cards, you know what I mean? Or borrow money from somebody that really wants it back, you know what I mean? Like all those things. So just don't put yourself in a hole. Like I'm going in, know that like, hey, this is my test, great. That's fine. Do it. And maybe you'll make a winner. That's what's cool is that you might. So.
Okay. I mean, to close out my comment is basically it is called show business, and the show is the sexy part. People are either ignorant to it or just too glassy-eyed about the first part. When it's in the can, it's out there. I don't think I'm being disingenuous in saying the majority of people, filmmakers, think that's the end of the rainbow right there. It's done. I'm done. Not realizing you've barely breached the 50% threshold, because now it's all about. I made a comment earlier. It's you made the tuna. Now it's about selling Charlie. So it's you just got to put it out there. I don't. Yeah, no, guys, come on, stick with me, guys. Stick with me.
Hey, don't knock it. I'm going to write a book. That's the title of my book.
Yeah,
fantastic. So
I love it.
Everybody will say
reaction to that.
Hey, I'm deep. I'm deep, guys. I'm deep. You'll be thinking about it 10 minutes later and get it. Watch. So anyway, I'm going to wrap us up for today's panel. Thank you so much.
Great.
I did my best, and again, I like to keep things free flowing because information comes out there that I just like on set. I'm very open to discovery if we can, and this is absolutely a platform for that. Where we can circle back to some distribution points if they weren't covered today. Again, I like these to be a combination of review and education. So there are comments like AVOD or P&A that people don't even new people aren't going to know what that even means, or for a lot it's a part of the vocabulary to say, oh, if you don't expect MG, or is it G? I can't even remember now. They might think it's a kind of salt, but point being, we'll try to stay focused on point, but if it carries us somewhere where it brings so much more information, and again, gold nuggets for people to pick up that may relate to them directly, I think that's the bigger goal. So today was about distribution. A post end, we can absolutely still touch on it in tomorrow's panel. Tomorrow's panel will be, we're going to try to start with the front end now. Again, we're going to end with the beginning in terms of film financing. That can be the general
We're going to tell you what
definition of that
at the end of the rainbow is, right?
All the way. Or it could be more into the nuances and digging where you don't necessarily think of it in the traditional sense, where post-production, we need funding. We've got the film shot. We just need an extra 50 grand, 100 grand, whatever.
Too, so it'll be a good conversation.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm sure. And we will also be joined by Leo Mark Studios. As I mentioned, they're shooting today, so they couldn't quite make it by 1 o'clock. And to mix it up for you fellas there, it's going to be Maria representing opposed to Eric coming in. Sorry, Mark, I know you really wanted to just look at Eric for a while opposed to hearing what he said, but so it'd be nice to get a different voice in there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
All right, we'll end it on that note.
I have
Everybody wonder about Mark.
Well, I'll be subtle. He's totally enamored by Eric. Okay, so thank you very much for your time, everybody. We will see you in 22 hours or so. Have a great rest of your afternoon. If you have any meetings, I put it out there to the film folks that, again, back to the beginning, where if you want to, what the market is just setting up meetings and going to the panels, learning and making deals if possible. So if you guys could, during the hours, just be around online. Don't sit behind your computer just waiting for somebody to come by. We're not at that point yet. But if you hear a knock on your door or you're on your computer because the window's open, fantastic. Turn your camera and your mic off or whatever. But there's a stronger chance this year that somebody might just come by and knock. But other than that, I know the panel is going to generate some questions, so you may be getting some inquiries and correspondence. I know, Phil, you already are in the middle of a deal right now because we had a filmmaker with us who showed some incredible initiative and started researching the different people we had, and looks like he struck a relationship. So that's fantastic. And we can save that for another day. So again, thank you very much. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Cool. And I look forward to speaking with everybody tomorrow. Thank you, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.